So I was asked if I wanted to teach by Jay, and just out of habit I said, oh yeah, sure. And so I guess now I'm teaching.
Facilitating.
Facilitating, yeah, there we go. Which really this is more for facilitation. But yeah, I guess I just kind of want to go back to the basics, and I don't know. I guess I'm going to start just by kind of giving somewhat of a little metaphor and kind of a picture.
You need to speak up.
I'm sorry. So, it's kind of awkward. So let's say that this is kind of the world of Scripture. You know, you got your land, you got your sky, and you got your, your ground. And so pretty much, just in terms of depth, this is kind of the down there. This is kind of the theology of just like things that are just kind of out there. And then right here you have your real deep stuff. You know, this is where you find your gold and your gems and all that good stuff. And really, this is good. You know, we often come here and we get that gold, but it's not sustenance. I mean, where we get our sustenance that we live off of is right here at the ground level, the land. This is where we produce our actual fruit. And just being in the Messianic movement, what we usually do is we start up here, kind of in the area of fairy world, and we're like, so what everyone else's theology is wrong. Then we go straight deep, and we kind of miss the basics. And it's really sad because, you know, we're trying to figure out why aren't we yielding any fruit? And really, we don't hit the basics enough. And so, really, I just kind of want to have a group discussion on kind of just something that we overlook a lot, and that is what the Messiah did. And so I guess I kind of want this topic to not be about what he didn't do, because we jump on that really, really quickly, and then we get on a bunch of rabbit trails about how everyone else is wrong. But today I just kind of want to ask a few questions and have a group discussion on what he actually did and who he was. And so I guess to start it off, who was he?
Son of God?
Yeah.
The
Son of
second
God.
Adam.
Second Adam.
King of the Jews.
King of the Jews.
Messiah.
Messiah. Yeah. So I mean, pretty much, you know, this history.
He was the one example in flesh of the fulfillment, of being able to fulfill the Torah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of God making himself manifested as a human being. I mean, it's kind of an epic thing. I mean, this is God coming to earth. It's not a small thing. And so I guess, what are the actions he took while he was here?
Walked a lot.
Yeah.
Kept the Sabbath.
Yeah.
He was a healer.
He taught.
Yeah.
He loved.
Love.
He healed.
You know, I would think that in correlation to your example there, he spent his time on the ground because he produced fruit.
Yeah.
He didn't really need to be out in the ozone near Ferry, and he really didn't need to dig for gold for the nuggets, probably because he had all of that already anyway.
Yeah.
He spent his time, which I think maybe your point is, that he spent his time right on the ground level where everybody was.
Yeah. He was rule 1, rule 2. You know, love and actually go. Go do what you need to do. Go do good works. And so, you know, why did he come? Because, you know, it's just not a casual thing for God to come down and be like, manifest himself and then go die. So, what led up to him coming? What was the purpose behind that? And I mean, the Jews, they knew he was coming. Like, so it was written about. So, what led up to him coming?
To redeem man from sin.
Amen.
Is that all?
That was his essence, to
Yeah.
undo what Adam did in the garden.
Very much so, yeah. Amen.
Restoration.
There we go. It's another.
I see him as a course corrector,
Yeah.
because, I mean, the course had been given from the beginning. And from that point, we started going just slightly off course, and I think he came back to go, no, come back this way. You know, here's my course.
Yeah. He showed his people, you know, how they had gone astray. Yes.
Again, so you want to get back to the basics. So we need to go back to Genesis.
Right.
I mean, again, as Paul referenced in Romans, I believe, 3 and 4, is that Yeshua was the second Adam. He came to deliver man from sin and death, separation from Yahweh. I mean, to restore man, give him to a position where we can enter back into that relationship again. Okay? So that's, and we forget that's the basic thing that he did.
He came to restore, yeah.
I mean, that was the whole essence of the first covenant with Havah, that, where he mentioned the seed. That yours, the woman's seed would crush the serpent's seed. I mean, so I mean, it goes, I mean, I'm just referring back to the basic. I mean, and sometimes we lose it in the very basic theology of what was the whole intent of God restoring man back to his position on earth. Okay, so.
Definitely. Yeah. You know, what about the, yes, Dan?
Well, if I understand your question is going back to what Yeshua did as a person on this earth. And we can talk about all, redemption and all that, that's great, but how did he produce fruit? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, this was the initial question, like, what were his physical actions? And then after that, it was like, what did he accomplish in doing so?
Okay.
So,
He walked the walk and talked the talk.
there you go. Yeah, certainly.
He spent 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness.
Yeah.
He was tested, in other words.
Perform miracles.
Yeah.
He was baptized.
He kind of died.
Pray.
Yeah. He did. Which is kind of something that's hard to understand. He did defeat Satan.
He performed some miracles.
He confronted sin.
There you go.
the sheep.
He fulfilled prophecy.
Certainly, yeah. Which is actually a interesting thing, because it's like, it says that he did so much that if you write down all he did, it would fill the entire earth with novels. And so, why did they write down the specific things he did? And you'll find a lot of it was just to point out that he did fulfill prophecy. And then you have Matthew, which also highlights on a lot of his teachings. So, yeah, that's certainly one thing he did.
Confronted those that should have taught about him.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't, at least for a while,
Oh, okay. And so, what did this all accomplish?
One of the things that we haven't hit on yet is it provided a way to bring back the lost tribes.
Yeah, there you go. That's a big one.
Restoration of the kingdom.
That's,
Yeah.
I would say that's probably what you were talking about, and it's what he actually accomplished. What he did was a lot of things.
Yeah.
What he actually accomplished by what he did was to restore us to the Father.
Yeah. So, what was the whole purpose of his death? I mean, that's a pretty big chunk. That's usually half of each of the Gospels.
So you remarry his bride.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to just
Certainly
amend
part.
what I just said, just slightly. He at least gave us the opportunity to be reunited with the Father. He didn't do it. He set up the conditions whereby we can be reunited through him with the Father.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a fait accompli that it's
Well, I
gonna
mean,
happen.
what he did is he fulfilled a legal precedent.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
legality, it was a legal binding agreement or what have you with Adam. I mean, there was a price to be paid, death. Sin is death. That's the equation. So, I mean, and he had to fulfill those. He had to fulfill that. And Yahweh did it himself. He had to he had to do the universal laws that he established. I mean, so, who knows all the ramifications and what that entailed, but, in the heavenlies, in the cosmos, but, I mean, obviously there was a great reasoning of what he came to this earth to do. I mean, he had to redeem his namesake, I mean, you've heard that all through Exodus, for my namesake, I'm doing these things. His namesake, it was on the line. You know, so, I mean, that's just part of it too,
Yeah. Yes, Dallas?
I believe he came to reveal his servants to the Father, to give us a chance to awaken his children back to him and give us a hope. Those of us who don't want to be of this world, and those of us who, if it wasn't for Yeshua, we would, who knows where, first of all, where this country would be or where the earth would be if he wouldn't have come, 2,000 years ago or however long ago it was that he came. But I believe that he gave us an opportunity to separate ourselves from the wickedness of this world so that there wasn't another flood. And now, today, we have a hope that is outside of, being rich in America or having what we want in this country. We have a hope that goes beyond here, a hope of the millennial kingdom and a hope of being in that kingdom and being sons in that kingdom and, sticking to the calling that the Israelites didn't stay to, and then Joshua brought them, or Yahshua brought them and led them to. He did the same thing, and he's doing the same thing even today, is he's helping us to walk out. He's grabbed our hand, he's guiding us just like he guided the Israelites. He's carrying us, and he's showing us how we are supposed to go forward and the reward of going forward. So basically, I believe that he's the ultimate hero, and he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, certainly. And I think he, just a thought out there, so he did make a name for himself. I mean, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I mean, if you read the prophets, like, all the nations feared him around him, but, you don't really hear much about him outside of that. And so one thing with Yeshua is that he certainly made a name for himself, as you can go to almost any country, and they've at least had some knowledge of him. Whether it be good or bad, they've heard of him. Yes?
There again, he did specifically say, I came not to glorify myself, but my Father.
Yeah.
And what people have done, I'm not trying to go there too much, but we've, again, replacement. It could be a sign of replacement theology there. I mean, because that's a main argument with the Jews, is that you've elevated Jesus higher than Yahweh. Okay? And that wasn't the intention of Yeshua, to be elevated higher than the Father. Okay? So I don't think his intent was to elevate himself. His intent was to elevate the Father. I came to do what my Father tells me to do, and what I hear my Father say, I say. So, I mean, I just...
Yeah, certainly. Also on the flip side, I mean...
And I think that goes to, he was that perfect model of how we're supposed to be. Because, we could be confused with Jesus doing that. I don't think there's a chance that there's a one of us in here who would be confused with us exalting ourselves above God. We don't have that problem really, because we don't even begin to approach that. But in that same sense, he was trying to show us how to be, and that we could be just like him, and that because he exemplified exactly how it was supposed to be done. Everything I'm doing, like you said, is here to glorify my Father. It's not about lifting me up. As a matter of fact, I will bow myself down to serve. That's how I will be exalted, if you will, is by being the servant to all. So again, it's that perfect example of how you can be and how you should be, and in that you glorify my Father,
Yeah. Also on the flip side, though, he does make it clear that he does give us strength, and he should be glorified, which I've seen neglected a lot. I mean, we always make comments like, "Oh, they forget about the first 2/3." Well, we forgot about the last third, which is a pretty big book. I mean, or a group of them. So, yeah.
But don't take me wrong, my brother. I'm just saying that he was the image of the invisible.
Right.
He was the physical, he was the manifestation of the eternal one. Okay, so just like we are to do the same thing, to be an image of Yeshua. Okay, but what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to say not to give him glory and not to glorify him, but what I'm trying to say is that we sometimes can take it to the other extreme and exalt him as being a second deity, higher than his Father. Okay, and so we neglect the principal one of Yahweh. Okay, Yeshua was Yahweh in the flesh. He wasn't a separate God. Okay, correct?
Correct, yeah. And,
Okay?
I was just saying we need to
He
find
wasn't a
balance.
separate entity. No man can come unto the Father except through me. Right? I mean,
Right.
so they're one. Okay, so and that's all I'm trying to say is that, we have to not diminish him and say that he wasn't the Mashiach, because he is.
Yeah,
But I have no problem with, when I reference both of them, the same.
yeah.
They're
no.
both the same to me. When I
Likewise.
reference Yahweh, I'm referencing Yeshua, for he is our Yeshua. He is our salvation. So that's, I guess, my point.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, again, we need to find balance, and that's all I was saying.
Sure.
I wasn't disagreeing with you or saying you were, doing an extreme, either way. Just, trying to throw out thoughts. So, I guess this is the biggest question, and how does that apply to us? Like, straight up, how does that apply to us?
Always that example. So
Yeah.
we have an example of how to be.
Yeah, we certainly do have a good reference point to how we should live our lives.
Well, John tells us that if we're gonna claim to be children of God, we have to walk as Yeshua did. So we have to be looking at how he produced fruit and be doing those same things.
Right. Is that all?
Learn
That's true.
Similar to how we go through life day to day and we try to base decisions upon what we have read and studied within the Torah. We also need to look at Christ as our example on how he treated others and what he did as an example. So does that answer the question you're asking?
I guess so. Certainly part of it. God came to the earth and he did quite a bit of things, including, he showed us how to live and he died. And is there, yes, Dad?
So speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. As you can see, I'm kind of finicky. Yes, Jim?
I think it would be good to just correlate even to some of the stuff we talked about earlier today. We said he characterizes himself as a servant. Okay, well, servants do things. I think we came to that agreement that we agreed that if you're a servant, you're doing something. Well, so he exemplifies that. He says he was a servant to all, so he did. He did for all, he served all he did, So I think it goes to what Jay talks about a lot, and filling them about actually doing something makes you represent God truthfully, or Yeshua truthfully, because he was a doer. He wasn't just an idea.
Stas?
I don't mean to go back to what you're talking about, but something that's, I'm thinking about right now is maybe the reason we have a hard time with Yeshua sometimes and with Yah, and mixing them up and not really understanding and glorifying this one and glorifying that one is because we haven't seen the entirety of Yeshua yet. We've seen him as the suffering servant. We've seen him as the one who died for our sins and who redeemed us. But he's going to come back as the rod and the rock and the one that is the king. He's going to come back as the king. He's going to judge the nations. He's going to give righteousness to his children and their reward. He's going to give what belongs to the wicked for them. And then we're going to see, the entirety of Yah in Yeshua, because he will manifest himself in that way. But right now, we only have Yeshua and then we only get Yah, I believe, by the Spirit of God revealing it to us. So I believe the apostles probably knew the God of judgment because they talked about it. And they said, there will be a judgment day and this and that, and they expounded upon those things. But I think sometimes we come to Yeshua and we don't really understand him as the king. We understand him as the lamb and as the suffering servant. But now he's worthy because he's the lamb who's slain. So now he's worthy to be our king. He's worthy to, take that position and that ownership because the Father gave it to him because of his obedience and judge us by God's standards kind of a thing. So maybe it's hard to glorify Him in His fullness sometimes, and glorify the Father in His fullness, because we don't completely understand God, because we haven't seen that aspect of God. We just know of it, we hear of it, and all of us here are here because we believe in Him, and we believe in what He's talked about, and we believe in His fruits, and we see that manifest in our everyday lives. And so it's those things that I believe help us go forward and onward. But I guess what I'm saying is, maybe as the coming day comes closer, we're going to start to see Him more just like the Israelites did when they were delivered from the promised land, or from Egypt to the promised land. I just sounded like them at one point, but when they were delivered to the promised land, and on that journey, they saw the wrath of God upon Egypt. They saw men die, they saw children die, they saw beasts and starvation, all that stuff. I mean, but that was the mercy of God. But at the same time, it was His judgment. And right now, we know His mercy because we know what Yeshua has done for us. But there will be that judgment, and I believe soon, even in this country. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. It could happen in 50 years, but even 50 years is soon. That I believe that His judgment is going to start coming upon this world again, to reveal His glory to us and to the Egyptians, or the Babylonians, or the pagans. But for now, we've been given a mission to tell the world of the God of mercy and love, and the one who deserves their praise and their glory and their honor. But I don't know, I'm just kind of trying to tie everything together.
It does say, I'm not sure where, but you know, but only in part. I mean, I'm just taking off what Dallas was saying, man. I think there's a valid point there that it's, you can only know in part until you see the fullness of His glory, and you see, like you said, they understood Yahweh from a perspective of having really seen His glory in action, and I think the times are created now simply because what He will accomplish when He returns, it will be undeniable that it's the power of God acting here on earth. And so, acting through this person, if you will, the person of God, I think will bring that a much truer, will know more in whole their correlation, and be able to see them as one, even though they're, in a sense separate. I mean, he'll come as a man, he'll rule in an earthly kingdom. So there still will be a difference, if you will, I think, but we'll understand why they're one and the same much better in a time to come.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess going back to the last question I asked, how does this apply to us? I guess it's kind of like we need to do as He did. And you'll find that one thing He was always doing is He was always outreaching. He was always doing something to bring glory to His Father and to help others. And so, I don't know, maybe it's just time we started stepping it up and getting out there and doing it. That's all.
Yeah.